We are joined now by Charles Dallara, Partners Group advisory partner and former CEO of the Institute of International Finance. Charles, it's great to have you. Welcome back. What happened to all the euphoria over deregulation and lower taxes and better economic prospects in a pro-growth administration? Why now all the uncertainty?
Good question, Sarah. First, let me wish you and Scott happy holidays despite the market perturbations and anxieties. I think that what's happened in the market recently, though, is simply an acknowledgement that the uncertainties surrounding the potential adverse consequences of tariffs has crept into Fed thinking and Fed outlook for 2025. And that's against the backdrop, and it's important to underscore, it's against the backdrop of a very sticky inflation rate, hovering around 3%, depending on whether you look at the core or the CPI. And that's not a comfortable level at all for the Fed as we enter 2025. Will the Fed tariffs exacerbate that? We don't know, because we don't know exactly what is intended. Is this an opening salvo leading quickly to negotiations, which might actually improve the environment? Or is it going to be a persistent feature in 2025 that actually complicates the inflation effort? I think we also have to realize that the word of the day seems to be uncertainty. But I think that in my 48-year history in global finance, I don't think I've seen so many layers of uncertainty, Sarah. And I think that's what's hovering over the market. The near-term uncertainties regarding interest rates and inflation, the near-term uncertainties regarding Ukraine and whether or not the change of government in Syria is stabilizing or destabilizing, and medium-term uncertainties regarding the U.S. fiscal position. And so we've got other issues, I think, hovering over markets, which I think are not going to be resolved anytime soon.
How are you gaming out, Charles, what the next year, let's say, is going to look like as the Trump administration takes office once again? I mean, we know from prior history and even through some of the rhetoric already regarding whether it's Panama or Greenland, he could be a little rough on the furniture. But at the end of the day, he can also be successful in negotiating what he wants for the betterment of the United States. So how are we supposed to game all that out and think about market outcomes, given what we know relative to what obviously is still a little uncertain?
Well, that's a very good question, Scott. And I think, fortunately, some of these uncertainties will be addressed and reduced, in my view, within the first month or two of the administration. I think we're going to see whether or not these tariff proposals are the initiation of a lengthy, difficult period of a trade war. Given the interrelationships that have increased significantly since President-elect Trump was in office a few years ago, I think that we will know quite soon whether or not we're in a trade war, because it's not at all clear that China, Canada, or Mexico will sit by idly here in the face of these tariff statements. On the other hand, you're right. I mean, Trump in his prior term and even in recent statements indicates he's willing to negotiate. I think one potentially optimistic threat I do see on the horizon is not economic per se, but it could reduce uncertainty, and that is a potential understanding over Ukraine, which involves a ceasefire, an armistice, if you will, and adequate security protection toward Ukraine. I think that would add an element of confidence into the markets that is lacking there now. But I think the fundamental question really is whether or not the Fed is going to have sufficient comfort to resume rate cuts, or whether or not we indeed are looking at a possibility, however remote it may seem, or it may have seemed a month ago, that we may see rate rises in 2025. After all, this bond market reaction increasing, 30 points since the election is nothing to be sneezed at. And I think that Robert Kaplan made an important point. Creeping into that is not just the near-term uncertainty. It's the medium-term uncertainty as to whether or not the government can cope with the rising fiscal imbalances that we have. This past week's performance by Congress was frankly shambolic. And I think it underscores the uncertainties as to whether or not Congress and the administration are capable of wrestling these fiscal problems to the ground over the next few years.